Hello, everyone. My guest today is Ronan Percival. He's the co-founder of Demonware, which was a matchmaking service used in Call of Duty that was acquired in 2007. He then founded Phorest on Evergreen principles, which are building a company to last for generations. Over 70 of the 150 employees are ordinary shareholders, not options. Phorest is now serving over 5,000 salons and is the leading salon software company in Europe. Ronan, are you ready to take us to the top?
Yeah.
All right, so you go from a matchmaking service used in Call of Duty to salons. How the hell does that happen?
Yeah, good question. We actually didn't initially plan on getting into salons, but I ended up getting a job in a salon as someone working the front desk, just as a part-time job while I was in between gigs, and that's how I got interested in the industry. So it was something very unexpected.
That's pretty funny. Okay, so tell us what the company does for salons.
So we're booking POS SaaS platform for salons. So we do all their, everything that they do in the salon, from booking appointments, managing their client records, managing their stock control, doing their staff reporting, payroll, basically any admin task that the salon does. We try to automate in some way through the system, freeing up their time and giving them more time to work with their clients.
You mentioned transactions and SaaS. True or false? Your main revenue stream is SaaS, and then you take some very small cut of the transactions.
I would say about 65% is SaaS, 35% is transactional in some way.
Oh wow, okay, that's actually pretty high. So let me just ask about the SaaS side of things for a second. So if we have salon owners listening right now, the average salon owner that's paying you, what are they going to pay you per month just to use the software, not the transaction fees?
Just to use the software, anywhere from $100 a month to $200 a month.
Okay, got it. So you're very much that's annual.
Monthly.
Oh, monthly. Okay, but you're still very much in the SMB space then, huh?
Yeah, where 95% of salons are independent operators, right? So they're like one location.
So let me ask you a question. They go out of business a lot, which means churn on your end can be frustrating at times. What's your churn rate today, and how do you keep it low?
So we've pretty good churn rate for this industry of 6% logo churn per annum.
Per year?
Per year.
Wow, that's extremely low for this space. Why is it so low? What have you done?
Well, just we provide a huge amount of value for salons, and also we help them grow their business. So the average 12% of salons go out of business every year. So that's the actual churn rate for the industry. And we're half that, mainly because if you're using our product, you're going to be doing better than the competition generally. So they're more likely to stay in business. I'd say that's probably one of the main reasons.
That's amazing. And how many salons have you scaled to today?
5,000.
5,000. And those are actual paid salons, not like free salons, free users.
Yeah, that's 5,000 paying customers. Yeah.
Do you implement a freemium model to get these customers? How do you get so many?
No, we experimented with freemium, but it didn't work. A lot of free users and very little number of those converting to paid. So we moved to a paid only model for the last 5 years. And that's worked phenomenally well for us. It's better because the salons that sign up with us are serious about using the product and getting value from it. So they tend to be easier to onboard, if that makes sense. Easier to get them using all the value in the product.
Because people pay attention to stuff they pay for.
Yeah, like we're not the cheapest provider in the market. We're probably one of the more expensive for what we're doing. But that works well for us. So we tend to attract the sort of mid to high end independent salons. So a salon that would have like more than 5 people working there.
Yep.
Is the minimum. Yeah.
And what's your kind of top growth channel that's not a really obvious one? Like not Google ads or Facebook ads, but is there something you're doing kind of in the trenches that's really working nicely to find these kinds of salons?
Yeah, well, like just give you an example. Like in the last 12 months, we've probably onboarded 1,600 salons, something like that. And half of those come from content. So come from our own content channel. So we'd have quite a big podcast for salon owners, a blog, events, things like that.
Interesting.
So that's something that might be not expected.
Which a lot of people say content marketing, which isn't valuable and actionable because that can mean so many things. Can you name a specific piece of content on your blog that has performed the best in terms of helping you onboard 1,600 new salons?
Yeah, there's a couple of articles that are like Evergreen that are always in the top 2 or 3 read articles, and they've been around for a couple of years.
Uh-huh.
I don't have it to hand, but I can.
Do you know the search term off the top of your hand that you rank really high for?
Yeah. So we rank number 1 for 700 different items around salons. So things like, really quickly, top salon signs, I think is an example of one.
Interesting. And how did you create all this with humans, or did you do something kind of automated where you knew what the top search terms were for salons? You then pumped out a bunch of these articles, like created it from like a piece of code, or is it all humans?
It's all humans, but it's using data. I mean, like things like we're testing a lot of different content, so we probably put out a different piece of content every day. And so we're tracking, how those picked up, and things get a lot of traction that might develop into a much larger piece of content.
I see.
We have an SEO team then with particular bits of content to make sure, or come back with feedback on search keywords that we might lead to a bit of content around that. If that makes sense.
So you put out kind of little acorns, and then if they show any sign of life, your SEO team will go in and then optimize, and you'll make it maybe longer, more keywords, more value,
or even develop it into an ebook, then maybe, et cetera. So, and then that ebook might get to number 1 for something that gets a decent amount of search volume. I mean, some of these terms, when we're saying 700 terms, some of those are they might only have 5 people a week
month.
Looking at search, or a month even. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's great. And so let me understand your team breakdown. How many people are on the team today, and how many focused on content or events or things like that?
So we've 170 in the team. I would say we've got about 6 full-time on content.
Wow.
And then another 4, around that, between SEO and data and events and things like that are kind of backed off some of that content.
In terms of the blog, is that on top of WordPress?
Yes, the blog's on WordPress. Yeah,
I see. And the 170, is everyone based in Dublin?
No, we've about 110 in Dublin, and the rest around the world. So we'd have 25 in the UK, about 12 in the US, and then the rest are just 3 or 4 in Germany and Australia, and then sporadically remote workers from wherever they want to be.
Dublin and remote. And Ronan, put this on a timeline for me. When did you launch the company? What year?
So we've had a longish journey. We started in 2005 when I left Demonware, and
that was the salon you worked at.
Yeah, so I was working in the salon between 2004 and 2005, and we were bootstrapped pretty much all the way until 2011 when we did a seed round. So the company had about 15 people in 2011. And then, it started to grow properly from around then, I would say, if that makes sense. How
much raised to date?
So we raised $1 million in 2011, and then we didn't raise again until this year when we did 20 million.
Oh, got it. That's so very patient and effective with capital. I like that. Why not? So there's a couple of firms right now like Wisty and things that have raised like $1 million. They've gotten kind of good scale. And instead of going out and raising the 20 million like you just did, they said, you know what? It's really nice to be in full control. And they go buy out the early investors. Did that ever cross your mind or no?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, what we've done is the majority of the company is still owned by myself and the employees. So we've kind of made a pledge to each other that we'll always maintain full ownership and full control, because sometimes you can own the majority of the shares, but an investor will have rights in their
voting
agreement,
rights. Yep.
The ability to force a sale or something like that. They're not used that often, but they have that. So we don't have that in our agreement. So the firm that we took in this year, they're not actually a fund. It's Evergreen Capital as well. So there's no timeline on when they need a return.
Who was the investor?
A company called Susquehanna Growth Equity. They're based in Philadelphia.
Yeah. I mean, look, Growth Equity does have a timeline, but I would say they're so big, you're safe.
It's not a fund. So they're not set up as a fund, even though they're called Susquehanna Growth Equity. So the cash, so they don't have any requirements on when they need a return.
Who are their LPs?
It's their own money. So there's a company called Susquehanna. It's a software company, bootstrap software company. Does a couple
I see.
Of bits here, and they basically put half their profits into this. It's basically like a bank. I know, look, it's more complex than this. It's a bank account.
Yeah.
Where they, and then whenever an exit does come, it goes back into that bank account.
That's great. They share your DNA then, right? Bootstrapped, like you guys are probably very similar.
Yeah, they've about 18 companies in their portfolio. They've invested in the last 20 years, and they're all would have started bootstrapped.
That's great.
Right, that's what they invest in. Yeah, so.
That's great. And then in terms of, I want to talk more, by the way, about how you've managed to structurally set up everyone kind of owning a piece of the company. But I want to get back to that in a second. In terms of scale today, 5,000 customers paying on average $100 a month. That puts you at about $500,000 a month. Is that accurate?
No. So you asked me for the SaaS piece.
Yep.
So
sorry. Yeah, sorry. Just SaaS, $500,000 a month.
Yeah, a bit more, about 600.
Okay. And then I can multiply that by basically 1.3 to get up to, add the 35% transaction. Yeah,
like we've just closed, like we're coming to the end of this year and we'll do about 13 million euro this year. So that's
great. Yeah, that's great.
About $16 million, something like that.
Yeah, congrats. And you've got a nice foundational base under that, which is that pure kind of SaaS revenue. What did growth rate? So if you're doing $600,000,
I don't know how much you know about SMB SaaS, but most of the SMB SaaS companies, they're 40 or 50% transactional. Like, so if you look at
Ronan, but just to be clear, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I mean, we've interviewed about 3,000 B2B SaaS CEOs. So I see this pattern all the time. Very rarely. I mean, you're in 10, 15 years now, so you have a transactional model. Very rarely do I see someone in the SMB space less than 5 or 6 years old have a transactional component.
Yeah. So I'm talking about companies that are 10 years plus. Yeah. Like the public SMB.
Infusionsoft.
Yeah, and like Shopify, MindBody, all these guys, they're all 40% to 50% transactional at this stage.
Yep. Totally.
But yeah. Like I think is where transaction is so important to the real value is that like small businesses don't want to sign up to big contracts, right? So you need to generate revenue through value, and that's usually easier to do through transactional basis because they'll keep using it, but they know they can stop it at any time, but they won't as long as the value is still there.
It's directly attributable.
Yeah. So whereas like signing up to a 3-year, contract or whatever, it appeals to a large enterprise, but doesn't appeal to an SMB. So if you really want to, like the companies that have really nailed it in SMB, like even Intuit or whoever, like there's always some sort of transactional revenue stream over 30, 40%. From what I know, but I agree with you when you're smaller, and we would have been the same when we were smaller.
Yeah. What year did you launch the transactional model?
Well, we actually have two. So payments, which is a very common transactional model, right? So we've only been doing payments for the last 3 years, but we actually have another transactional model. So we do quite a lot of revenue through SMS notifications.
Yep.
And we charge those transactionally. So we've been doing that for 10 years.
That's like a margin between what you have to pay the actual, the cell tower versus what you bill through per text to the salon owner.
40, 50% margin. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. And real quick here, because we're out of time, growth rate. So if you're doing 600 or 650 right now, just pure play SaaS today, what were you doing on that just SaaS about a year ago?
That's up 53%, I think, year on year.
Oh, that's great. So call that would have been what, 420 grand last year, about a year ago. That's healthy growth.
Yeah, 400. Something I think we were doing monthly 400. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And then are you guys, obviously you just raised a ton of capital. Maybe it is sitting in the bank, maybe it's not. Are you guys cash flow positive today?
Yeah, we've been cash flow positive for.
So no plans to use the capital, just going to sit in the bank and it's going to look pretty.
No, I think we're going to, a couple of things. There's a few things that we're going to do with it, but it's going to allow us to expand a bit more in the US, take more risks, but we'll still try and do it cash neutral, if that makes sense. But we have buffer there in case it doesn't go right.
And right, it sounds like you're about to get more aggressive, but right now, how much are you going to pay to acquire a new $120 a month customer?
On sales and marketing,
fully weighted,
including onboarding costs and everything like that, we're $3,500.
Okay. So you knew that pretty quickly. You're making basically a lifetime value calculation. And what is that payback? Is that
transactional in terms of the lifetime value? Because for us, like we've got a long time of lifetime value. our transactional history that we were able to use and see with customers and things like that. So, we're 15 months.
15 months. Okay, look, that's health. That's pretty darn healthy. So very good. All right, let's wrap up Ronan here with the famous five. Number one, what's your favorite business book?
Well, the old school one was Good to Great, which I'm sure everyone mentions. But my favorite for the last year or two has been Good Strategy, Bad Strategy.
Number two, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
I love Shopify. So, and from their CEO down, just like those guys are amazing.
Yeah. Number three, what billing tool do you guys use?
Our own, but we're about to move to Zora.
Interesting. Okay. Number four, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
Well, I have 3 young kids, so unfortunately only about 6 hours.
Holy mackerel. Okay, so 3 kids, married, I assume?
Yeah.
And how old are you?
39.
Last question. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
To get started earlier, I think, So I started this when I was about 26, and I probably should have started 3 years earlier.
Guys, get started earlier. Phorest.com, helping salon owners scale nicely in the SMB space, currently serving over 5,000 customers, doing about 600 grand per month in revenue. That's just their SaaS piece. They're doing, call it 12, 13 million bucks in annual revenue. When you add on their transactions and payments component on top of that, that 600 grand per month is up from 420 grand per month just a year ago. So about 53% year-over-year growth. They tried freemium, didn't work, ended up moving to a paid model about 4 or 5 years ago. Again, now working nicely. 21 million raised to date. All the employees are actual shareholders in the company, which I love. 170 of them based all around the world, mainly though in Dublin. 6% annual logo churn, healthy for a space that churns 12% per year just naturally. Again, spending about 15 months of lifetime value on acquisition. Ronan, thanks for taking us to the top.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. All right, take care.